This is Tim with Steel Stamps. Appreciate you taking a moment to watch the video. We make stamps for leather, for metal. Guys making knives and blacksmiths like to stamp their goods also. But this video is about leather. So we'll talk a little bit about leather stamps today. One of the biggest questions I get on leather stamps is, what is a steel stamp? So there's different kinds of stamps you can get, and each stamp has a value proposition to it. You can get a steel stamp, you can get a plastic Delrin stamp, you can get a two-piece brass stamp. Each one of these are a different value proposition. They're not necessarily bad value propositions, but we make a steel stamp, and the key features of a steel stamp are they're a solid one-piece tool. They've got a lot of weight to them. They're cut sharp and deep. And when you use that stamp, there's much less possibility of getting bounce and double images and mucking up your work. So number one feature of a steel stamp, they're easier to use. The added bonus of a steel stamp is that you can never wear it out on leather. Thirdly, I would say that you can use it on wood, even soft metals if you wanted to. These stamps are made of tool steel and they're hardened, so you really can't wear them out on leather. And again, you could use them on wood, plastic, metal.
So what's some of your most popular questions?
Well, sizing is one of them. Oftentimes people are not fully aware of what size they need or should have. So our tools run in 1/4 inch increments, starting at 3/4 inch for maker's marks, that is. So 3/4, 1 1/4, all the way up to 3 inch is the maximum size. Most people making belts, wallets, holsters, this sort of thing, typically get the 1 inch tool. And a typical oval size on that 1 inch tool is 15/16 by 0.65 inch, okay? It doesn't have to be that, but that's kind of our go-to profile for an oval. Saddle makers will tend to be in the 1.5 to 2 inch range, okay? So a little bit on size.
Okay, so if someone wants to get started, I think it's hard for them to know where to start. So if they've got like some pencil drawings of a sketch,
yeah.
How do you take it from there?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so on a traditional maker's mark, in most cases, we simply put that together for you. You come along and you tell me, this is what I'd like on the top line, the middle line, the bottom line, and we'll put a proof together for you once we've agreed on pricing and everything. We'll send you a proof, and oftentimes we can present it 2 or 3 different ways depending on what we're doing. And so you get an opportunity to look at that. You can say, hey, I like this, adjust that. Then when it comes to art that's non-traditional, maybe a lot of people have a brand, it's a Bar X or a Rocking R or something like that. If you send me a sketch of it, hand-drawn sketch, we can typically put that together for you. It's relatively simple on the graphic art side. If it gets a lot more complicated, then we'll have to talk about either you going outside to get your art done or me making arrangements to do that for you.
Do you have an opinion about what a good brand is or a good maker's mark as far as should it be simple or complex?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Simple is always better. I think that the key is to see it. Oftentimes people who are not familiar with the process want to cram a lot of information in there. They're looking for fancy stylized fonts. And remember, we're trying to make something at 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch. And when you get down to that size, these fancy fonts tend to work against you. They spread out more, forcing your letter size down, and they want to close up on you. So keep things simple. And if you're talking about just branding, maybe it's not a traditional maker's mark. I like to look at the example of some of the big corporations, Amazon and Walmart, and these. You look at their brands; they're so simple and really not very attractive to me. But they know that they want to connect that brand to their product, and at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. So if you're doing just a brand, not a traditional maker's mark, keep it simple. And I think simple is better. So let's talk a little bit about tools, okay? At the smaller end, we use dimensional tools. They're either rectangle or square. This is beautiful for helping you index your image to your leather, to help keep it square, because you know exactly where you're at. At a certain point, you just get too much steel. A stamp becomes too massive, and so we begin machining these tools more like that. It's a beautiful tool, and you can see you've got a lot to hang on to, but you're not hanging on to a big, massive chunk of steel. And that's really the difference between the smaller and the larger. This is why we go to a machine tool. It's not really just for looks, but it's functional, because we know you can't comfortably hang on to a 2-inch piece of steel.
Yeah, I imagine if you had this one here, I really like that design. But if you had that as complete round stock all the way there, it would weigh about 1.5 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. And just harder to use.
Yeah.
So then we want to talk a little bit about the sales process. So most of my business is over email. And you'll find a form on my website to fill out information on there: name, mailing address, what you want, size. It's really an efficient process for you and for me, because if we're going to move forward with the process, I don't have to come back in emails and ask you for that information. And here's what I found over the years of doing this, is that the more emails you have between one another, the more opportunity for confusion. So when I get that information and I understand what you want, we'll talk about pricing, and at that point, if you're comfortable, I'll go ahead and put together a proof or multiple proofs in some cases, so you can have some options. I'll also put together a work order, and that work order will have the details of what we're doing, including that mailing address, phone number, email that you shared with me on that form. And again, now I don't have to go back and ask you for that, much less chance of confusion with extra emails. So once you've then told me, yes, I like this image, everything on the work order looks correct, then I'm going to send you an electronic invoice. And as soon as that electronic invoice is taken care of with your credit card payment, we'll get you into the order queue. Typically 2 weeks or less to get that order out. A lot of times it's closer to 1 week. So.
All right. And then lastly, I can see it says Boise there, but I'm assuming that's where they're made. Can you tell me a little bit about, how big of a staff you have, and if it's, are you farming these out to someplace overseas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we produce everything at our shop in Boise, Idaho. There's 5 of us in the shop, including my wife. So I do most of the sales and general management. Got a couple guys on the shop floor doing most of the work these days. Sometimes I get out there, but I don't get as much time as I'd like out there. But everything's done in-house. It's
American made.
American made in Boise, Idaho. Yeah. So we source all of our products in the U.S., all our raw materials. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Bo's bought a stamp. How many stamps?
Well, I've got 2 stamps. I've got a small one that I use on belts, and then I've got a larger one that I use on saddles and fenders, So the deal is, if you care about your work, like any other artist, you got to sign it, right? So what better way to sign it than to use a quality stamp, It just makes so much sense. That's what you got to do, When I was a kid, I got started in leatherwork when I was about 12, and there was a wonderful woman who was a lady saddle maker. Her name was Helen Corwin, and she used to work for Porter's in Phoenix. She built saddles in high school for Porter's saddles, and so she moved to the town where I grew up in Blythe, California, and she was such an amazing woman. She just grabbed a strip of leather and take a swivel knife. Don't lay a pattern down or nothing. She just started carving a pattern, and then go ahead and tool it out. But the deal was, as soon as you started figuring out your pattern, okay, where's your stamp going to go, so that you can sign your work. So that's why I enjoy having a decent stamp, But I moved about 15 miles away, so I'm in a little different town. So I want people to understand, okay, well, I'm I'm not in Brawley, California anymore. I'm in Imperial, California.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good story. Thanks.